Hola comunidad. Welcome back to another episode of Host of Darkness. Tonight, we have 3 bone-chilling experiences from you. From a terrifying encounter from El Charro Negro, an infamous malevolent entity that, in Mexico, has been said to make deals with people in exchange for their souls, to encounters with La Llorona and, curiously, shape-shifting witches roaming around Mexico and Latin America. If you like content such as this, please give a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel to get further updates. And you can also visit our pages on other platforms such as Spotify, Reddit, and TikTok, all of which are attached in the description below. Now, let's move on to tonight's experiences and hope none of you become the next protagonist of a terrifying experience on Host of Darkness. In my maternal family, they have told me about paranormal things that have happened, since, on that side of the family, no one is a saint. One day, to annoy my friend, I told her a story about how El Charro Negro appeared to my grandfather and aunt, where they were in an area in the countryside they could not and should not enter, since it was said that under a tree you had to go at a certain time, and they had to go talk to him. I don't know very well if it was El Charro or the devil, but I remember that they said that he was very handsome, with a very beautiful black horse. But I told my friends that the very bad things that happened in my family were from him, and from then on out, I began to make fun of her, and then it happened. That night, something strange happened. I woke up in the early morning, and I remember that I couldn't get up, but I was awake. So no matter how hard I tried to sleep, I could not go to sleep, and I began to pray. And I tried looking for my phone, but for some reason, I couldn't even see my phone. I pretended to sleep until I began to hear a noise outside my house. A horse galloping, increasingly louder and faster. At that moment, I didn't worry. You see, I live on the top of a hill, and I also have my dogs, my companions, but at that moment, it was as if I was alone. Every time I heard it, louder and closer, and strangely, my dogs didn't even bark at it. They didn't even recognize the noise at all. I went to look out the window and there was no sign of anything. So I just tried to get some sleep, but the noise continued. There, I began to hear how they began to hit the gate. I began to try to listen, and since it was repeatedly hitting the gate, and I expected my dogs to bark or for my parents to get up, but none of those things happened. And after a few minutes, I heard how the gate swung and the lock gave away, and then nothing. I still could not even stand nor scream from fear at the time. I could only lie down, listening. And after that, I heard how a horse was walking in the yard to my house. You could hear how they were knocking on the front and back windows very loudly. I felt scared until I stopped, but things didn't end, if not after that silence. I heard that it was inside my house. You see, I sleep on the second floor like the others in my family, but my room at the time was literally attached to the stairs. I could not do anything. How that horse was going up the stairs while a man was talking. But I didn't understand from one moment to the next what he was saying. He slammed my door shut, and before that, the only thing that I could do was close my eyes and pray that it would all end. On the contrary, I felt and heard how that horse ran past me over several times without stopping but it didn't hit me until all of it stopped. I felt how the weight holding me down went away, but I still felt something looking towards me from the door. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see that the tall man was standing at my door, staring at me. The truth is, I don't know much of what he said, but because it happened so long ago. With that, I stayed awake until it was daytime. I was finally able to sleep at that point, and at one point later on, I told my mom about what happened, and in the end, she only told me to be careful because we don't know what it was or why it came here, but be careful because after all, you know, son, that many things happen here at the house. I tried sharing this story on another horror subreddit, but the mods pulled it because of formatting issues. That stung, because this isn't fiction. It really happened to me, and I worked hard on writing it out, so I'm sharing it on here instead, where people might be more open to true experiences. I'm a veteran with 9 years in the Army. Most of my service was uneventful. Long nights, dull shifts, a crippling nicotine and caffeine habit. I never saw Bigfoot, UFOs, or haunted barracks like the stories floating around. But I did have one notable experience. It happened during a temporary duty assignment to Honduras in 2019 at Soto Caño Air Force Base. Being the most junior enlisted, I got stuck on the night shift. My job was simple: keep logs, monitor radios, answer my calls, emails, and patrol the office building. Most nights were dead. It was 3 months of long nights, coffee, Netflix, and total war. Then, around 0300 one night, I heard it. A woman crying. At first, I blamed boredom or sleep deprivation, but it came back the next night, and the night after that. Always around 3 a.m. Always a woman. It always lasted about half an hour, and I stopped laughing about it when one of my NCs heard it too. Finally, he told me, "Go check it out." So, I stepped outside, lit a smoke, and told myself it was nothing. But I couldn't help but feel a little unnerved by this. Why would anyone be outside at 0300? The further I walked, the further the crying moved, always just out of sight, pulling me deeper into the dark. It led me past the chicken coops, down the road, all the way to a drainage pipe at the edge of the base, and then silence. And not just the crying, the cicadas, the frogs, the wind, everything. Like the whole world hit pause. And that's when I heard her voice. My hair stood up on end. Alone, at 3 a.m., a woman whispering in Spanish from the shadows. I bolted, ran back past the coops. The chickens exploded in squawks like they had heard her as well. Back inside, my sergeant asked what I saw. I told him, "Chickens." He laughed. Neither of us logged it, and we never mentioned it again. At least, not until I told a buddy back home. He was Puerto Rican, and when I mentioned the crying, his face went pale. and he told me that wasn't just some woman. That was La Llorona. It said if you hear her, it means death is close, yours or someone's near you. I laughed it off, but the weirdest thing happened a few nights later. During a cross-training with the Marines, I almost died. We were sling-loading gear to the helicopters at night with no night vision whatsoever. The grounding man lost contact with the bird, and I stepped in to hook the load just as the static charge built. My sergeant yanked me back by my carrier plate seconds before the helicopter dropped low enough to take my head off. After that night, the crying stopped. I don't believe in ghosts, but I know what I heard. My NCO heard it, other soldiers on shift heard it. None of us could explain it, so we just buried it. All I know is this: whatever was out there at 3 a.m., she wanted me to follow her, and she wanted me to know she was there. Through my youngest years, around 7 to 12 years old, my mother dated a guy very on and off, which I think mostly had to do with him being in the army and staying with his family in Laredo, Texas, whenever he was home. Either way, he invited us to go visit his cousin's summer cabin in Monterrey, Mexico, for a weekend, so we did. The cabin was very ranch style, longer in one dimension and shorter in the other, so it was built like an architectural rectangle. On one far side of the building, think of this in an aerial view, was the kitchen. Next to it was the living room. Attached to the living room was a long, slender hallway connected to 2 bedrooms on each side and a bathroom on one of the sides. The backyard was only accessible through the living room via a sliding door in what seemed like a bit of a desert floor met a forest tree line of dead and dying Monterrey cypress trees. Meeting the tree line was a elevated hunting tower which had its platform meeting the top of the vertical tree line. I'm prefacing my experience with the following information because I believe in being open-minded in all aspects, and I want to tell my story rather than sell my story. On our way to the cabin, my mother's boyfriend was telling us about a cursed legend of the witches of Monterrey. Apparently, they had been haunting the mountainous area for generations and were his childhood version of La Llorona. Clearly, he was trying to scare us from the get-go, and me being so young, I was eating this stuff up like candy. We got to the cabin in the late evening, so we decided to stay in for the night and watch M. Night Shyamalan's The Lady in the Water. After the movie, my mom's boyfriend asked me to go get something from the bathroom for him, and as I was halfway down the hallway, he turned the lights off on me. Let me remind you, this was a very rural part of Mexico, so the dark was dark. So with all the scary stories, and at the time for me horror movie as well, I was spooked and froze. My mom's boyfriend began to make your stereotypical ghost noises and taunting me to go deeper into the hallway, but I was so petrified I remember just standing there, frozen in fear. Longer story short, my mother got on him and he turned the lights back on and they comforted me. We all went to bed. I can't remember how I slept that night, but I honestly wish I did. The next day, we did basic tourist stuff, went to a bazaar, embraced the city's beautiful mountain range, which seemed to hug the city, ate authentic Mexican food, and visited the main hub of the city. When the day was all done, we decided to call it and went back to the cabin. This was important to me because I remember the night before so vividly, yet can't remember anything else about this night other than what I'm going to write about. I was in the living room of the cabin, and I remember my mom's boyfriend was there with me. He asked if I wanted to go up to the hunting tower out back with him, and innocently said yes. I remember following him through the back door of the living room, and I remember him walking ahead, turning back to wave me towards him. I took it as he was trying to help me keep up with him and follow him. I watched him climb up the ladder of the hunting tower, and then I heard a voice behind me.
Hey, where are you going?
It was my mom's boyfriend behind me, asking where I was going. I turned back around to look at the hunting tower along the tree line, and no one was there. Nothing. Not an animal, not my mother, not a specter, nothing. Fast forward a couple years. My now wife and I were still dating at the time and sharing ghost stories with one another, and yes, I do have one other ghost experience in my life that I believe to be genuine as well. I told her about my experience in Monterrey, and I will never forget the pale look on her face when I told her. She is from a Mexican family as well, and this legend of the witches of Monterrey is a very real thing for her. The scary part, I was telling her this story on a Friday, and according to what her family told her growing up, Friday is a forbidden day to talk about them because that is the one day of the week they are most powerful. Apparently, they never forget their prey and use that day as a lure towards what they lost. Initially, I thought, no way. But I can't begin to express how many Fridays my wife had to stop me because I randomly brought up the story up on a Friday. Maybe it was self-conscious, I don't know. Anyway, has anyone experienced something else like this? If not, I'd still like feedback, comments, concerns, etc. Thank you for reading my story.